Welcome back, gearheads and history buffs, to RetroWheelsVault European Special, where elegance and adrenaline collide. Today we're not just cracking open the vault, we're unleashing a beast in a tuxedo. Sleek as an Italian runway model, yet as aggressive as a Detroit street fighter after 3 espressos. It's time to meet the 1972 Tomaso Pantera GTS. This isn't just a car, it's a cultural collision. Unlocking the finance machines from across the pond, we're diving into the mid-engine marvel born from an Italian flair and American brute force. A car so bold, it made Ferrari sweat and made Ford fans cheer. Built in Europe, driven by legends. So buckle up, because this story is part race car, part renegade, and all heart. The Tomaso Pantera GTS doesn't ask for your attention. It steals it, revs it to 6,000 RPM, and doesn't let it go. Let's take a moment to zoom in. Not on the exhaust, the engine, and even those wide hips, but the badge. That little emblem on the nose of the Pantera isn't just automotive decoration. It's family history wrapped in metal. See that T-shaped symbol? That's not just for De Tomaso. It's actually the cattle brand used by Alejandro De Tomaso's ancestors, Argentinian ranchers who wrangled longhorns long before their heirs started wrangling V8s. Talk about going from livestock to horsepower in one generation. And that slice of blue and white in the badge, that's a stylized take on the Argentinian flag, tipped on its side like it's leaning into a hairpin turn. Alejandro wasn't just building cars, he was putting his soul, his roots, and a dash of national pride right on the hood. The Pantera didn't just come from Italy. It came from Argentina, Via Modena, with a layover in Detroit. So next time someone asks what the badge means, tell them. It's part branding iron, part national flag, and all heart, because every beast deserves a good family crest. Picture this, if a switchblade could sprout wheels and growl in Italian, you'd have the Tomaso Pantera GTS. Designed by Tom Giarda at Ghia, this wasn't just a car, it was a rolling declaration of war on boring. The Pantera's design is all killer, no filler. That razor-sharp wedge body, it slices the air like it's got a vendetta against wind resistance. The GTS model added flared fenders, matte black hood accents, and a bad boy energy that made it look like it just left a street brawl in Milan. And won. Built with steel monocoque construction, a rarity for exotics of its day, the Pantera was solid, stiff, and surprisingly civilized. It had the bones of a European supermodel, but wasn't afraid to throw an American haymaker. It's aggressive, low-slung, and unapologetically 1970s. If James Bond had a rebellious cousin who got kicked out of MI6 for doing donuts in Rome, that cousin drove a Pantera GTS. Underneath that, Italian sheet metal beats a heart straight out of Dearborn, a 5.8-liter Ford 351 Cleveland V8. This wasn't some delicate high-strung European prima donna. No, sir. This was a cast-iron brawler wearing cologne. Smooth enough to impress at the opera, strong enough to bench-press a Cadillac. In the GTS trim, the engine roared to life with around 350 horsepower, more than enough to kick the Pantera into triple digits before finishing saying "Arrivederci." It had a torque for days with a low-end punch that made downshifting feel like pulling a trigger on a sledgehammer. And the sound? Imagine a lion gargling espresso and bourbon at the same time. It didn't purr, it thundered. This was American muscle fed through Italian veins, and it didn't ask for refinement, it demanded respect. When you dropped the hammer on a Pantera GTS, you weren't just driving, you were launching a V8 powered love letter to rebellion. If the engine was the Pantera's battle cry, then the drivetrain was its sword arm, delivering all that fury straight to the pavement with the precision of a Roman gladiator. And at the heart of it all, a ZF 5-speed manual, tucked neatly behind the driver like a loyal bodyguard with a mean streak. This wasn't some sloppy, vague shifter. Oh no, this was gated experience, each gear snicked into place like chambering a round. You didn't shift a Pantera, you commanded it. It felt mechanical, direct, and just a little dangerous. That kind of gearbox that separated the drivers from the tourists. Power went to the rear wheels with the kind of urgency you'd expect from a bull that just saw red. The mid-engine layout gave it balance. The drivetrain gave it the bite. This wasn't a car for cruise control. It was for grabbing second at 60 and asking your tires if they felt lucky. If the Pantera GTS were a fighter, its chassis would be the footwork. Nimble, balanced, and always ready to pivot into a punch. Built on a steel monocoque frame, a rarity for the time, it gave the car both rigidity and soul. This wasn't your average ladder frame muscle car. This was Italian architecture built for speed, not sightseeing. All four corners rocked fully independent suspension, double wishbones with coil springs and telescopic shocks. Translations: this cat didn't just pounce, it danced. Tight corners, sweeping curves, mid-throttle corrections, the Pantera soaked it all in and asked for more. Where muscle cars of the era cornered like shopping carts on roller skates, the Pantera sliced through bends like it had something to prove, and it usually did. It was as if Enzo Ferrari and Carroll Shelby got into a bar fight and settled their differences by designing a suspension system. It didn't just drive, it hunted, and with this chassis suspension setup, it never missed its mark. Step inside the Pantera GTS and you'll find yourself in a cockpit that feels more fighter jet than freeway cruiser. No wood trim, no plush armrests, just leather, gauges, and a steering wheel that practically growls at you. It's like climbing into the world's fastest espresso machine, tight, precise, and ready to jolt your senses. The dash is a symphony of simplicity. Big, round Viglia gauges, tacked front and center, because red line matters more than the time. Switches laid out like they were designed by a man who once built submarines. And air conditioning? Sure, if it's still working. But who needs AC when you've got adrenaline pumping through your veins? The seats hugged you like a jealous lover. Comfortable enough for a Sunday cruise, but firm enough to remind you that this car had business to handle. Ergonomics weren't perfect. You didn't sit in the Pantera, you wore it like a tailored Italian suit. A bit snug, but undeniably sharp. Out back, the Pantera GTS featured a ZF limited slip differential built right into that beefy transaxle, a mechanical peacekeeper keeping all that Ford fury from turning into a smoky chaos. It was like having a referee between the rear wheels, making sure power was shared fairly when traction got rowdy. Whether launching off the line or clawing through corners, the ZF diff made sure the Pantera stayed planted, poised, and just the right amount of wild. No drama, just grip. Unless you wanted the drama. Then it was all tires and testosterone. Let's talk size, and trust me, in the world of exotic machines, proportions matter. The 1972 Tomaso Pantera GTS measured just 168 inches in length. That's shorter than a modern Civic, but with twice the attitude and none of the compromise. At 71.3 inches wide, it planted itself on the road like a linebacker in a tuxedo. Broad, balanced, and born to dominate. In height, just 43.3 inches tall. That's not a car, that's a ground-hugging missile. You didn't so much step into a Pantera as fall into it, like slipping into a cockpit forged by Italian artisans and Detroit brawlers. With a 98.4-inch wheelbase, it struck the perfect harmony between high-speed stability and back-row flexibility. And at 3,281 pounds curb weight, it had just enough mass to feel solid without dulling the performance, like a heavyweight boxer who knows how to dance. In short, the Pantera wasn't large. It was concentrated, like espresso in automotive form. Small cup, massive kick. The Pantera GTS was a beautiful contradiction, equal parts exotic masterpiece and mechanical mischief maker. On the strength side, you've got the fire-breathing 351 Cleveland V8, a snarling heart with a brute force American muscle. Paired it with a mid-engine layout, ZF 5-speed, and fully independent suspension, and you had a car that didn't just look fast, it was fast. Nimble in the corners, explosive on the straights, and styled like a knife forged in Modena. But it wasn't perfect. Fit and finish? Let's just say panel gaps were more like polite suggestions. Early Panteras had a rep for overheating, electrical gremlins, and ergonomics that were, well, optimistic. The cabin could roast you like a Neapolitan pizza on a July afternoon, and wrenching on one often felt like solving a Rubik's Cube made by Enzo himself. But here's the truth. None of that mattered, because when the Pantera was good, it wasn't just good, it was glorious. It was flawed, fierce, and unforgettable, like all the best legends. The 1972 Tomaso Pantera GTS wasn't just a car. It was a transatlantic love letter written in horsepower and steel. It combined the fiery charm of Italian design with the unfiltered roar of American muscle, like if Michelangelo sculpted a drag racer. It wasn't perfect, but perfection's overrated. What it gave you was raw emotion, speed that slapped you awake, and a presence that made Ferraris twitch nervously at stoplights. So here's the million-dollar question. Would you tame the Pantera, or would you just let it roar? Drop your thoughts down in the comments and let's get this let's keep this conversation rolling like a wide open throttle on the Autostrada. If you enjoy unlocking this Euro-American beast, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for more vintage philosophy, and ring that bell so you never miss a ride. We've got more legends lined up, and remember, Euro icons, retro soul, only in this vault. This is RetroWheelsVault signing off. Until the next roar.